Tonight on Primetime, Andy Burnham takes the driver's seat of UK's Labour Party, saying he's ready to build on the foundations laid by Keir Starmer. Is Burnham able to succeed where Starmer fell short? Welcome to the program. I'm Andy Mioch. Andy Burnham, the former mayor of Greater Manchester, has been confirmed as UK Labour leader. He takes over at the helm of the governing party from Keir Starmer. In his first speech, Burnham pledged to give hope back to voters, adding that the UK had turned its back on working class communities. Burnham has been confirmed as Labour leader after running for the post unopposed. He will replace Keir Starmer in number 10 Downing Street and will go to see King Charles on Monday to officially become Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
To build a culture of one Labour team. Because change starts with us.
Well, in his first speech as party leader, Burnham pledged to unite the Labour Party and devolve power from Westminster towards the regions of the United Kingdom. Zainab Farajzadeh reports.
Andy Burnham has officially been confirmed as the new leader of the Labour Party. He succeeds Keir Starmer after securing overwhelming support from Labour MPs and affiliated trade unions. Before declaring the result, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood announced that Burnham was the only candidate to meet the nominations threshold, receiving 379 nominations from Labour MPs and 23 nominations from affiliated organisations, including all 11 trade unions. In his first speech as leader, Burnham thanked Keir Starmer for what he described as transforming Labour from its worst electoral defeat to its biggest victory, praising his record on reducing NHS waiting lists and restoring Britain's standing on the world stage. Looking ahead, Burnham said the party must recognize that politics has failed too many ordinary people and pledged to rebuild trust. He outlined 5 pledges for his leadership, creating what he called one Labour team, to end internal divisions, building a new style of politics, changing the party's political direction, leading for every part of the United Kingdom, and shifting power away from Westminster and Whitehall and into the hands of local communities. Burnham also sought to answer critics who say his focus has been too heavily centred on Greater Manchester. He insisted he would now be a leader for the North, the South, the East and the West, as well as Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, arguing that communities across the country face many of the same economic challenges. He also repeated his belief that Britain took a series of wrong turns during the 1980s, saying decades of centralized political power and privatization had left many communities with less control over housing, transport and other essential services. Burnham has not yet named his top team, saying he wants it to reflect voices from across the Labour Party. Burnham also told supporters he was ready to lead the party, saying he knows what he believes, knows what he wants to do and has a plan. He ended his speech by pledging to bring back hope as Labour's new leader. Zainab Farajzadeh, News, Manchester, United Kingdom.
Well, joining me now in the studio to examine what Burnham had to say and what his first moves as Prime Minister might be is A News' correspondent Hugo Sugg. Hugo, thank you so much for joining me here in the studio. Now, the new Labour leader set out his priorities. He pledged what he said is the biggest rebalancing of power the country has ever seen. How exactly does he see that happening?
So Andy Burnham was Mayor of Manchester for 9 years. Before that, he was in Parliament. So what he's been able to do is see what it's like being outside of Westminster, outside of London, and what the people on the ground want, what people in the north of England want, some of the most deprived areas in the UK. One of the ways he's going to do that is by this proposition of having a number 10 North. So moving some operations from London, from Westminster, 10 Downing Street, into the north, into Manchester, where he's MP for Makerfield, which is very close by. That comes with its challenges, though. It's very costly. You're moving staff. It also creates some challenges for daily communications. So twice a day, journalists meet with the Prime Minister's spokesman and have what's called a lobby briefing, and then they tell the press what's going on. There's a question about, because all the press are based in London, most of them, how does that lobby briefing have? There's a lot of unknown questions, a lot of unknown answers here. What was pledged in the Labour manifesto as well, in 2024 when they won with 412 seats, was a reorganisation of local government. So there's over 300 councils in the UK, and what they're trying to do is shrink some of those down and have less councils and more devolution. This notion of taking power into local communities, back to councils, having that accountability and that ability to raise taxes and fund their local services in people's communities.
One of the major issues for British people and voters is the cost of life crisis, the inflation. What are the main differences Burnham has hinted to as to how he would handle the crisis?
So Burnham has been quite quiet in terms of how he wants to move the country forward or take the country forward. But one thing I think he's learnt from Starmer, and he mentioned this in his speech today, is he's not just going to tell the country that we're going through a difficult time, things are going to be really tough. That's what Starmer did in his first few months as Prime Minister, while trying to have this narrative of everything's going to get better in time, but it's going to be painful at first. So Burnham's trying to eradicate that and make things more positive, more so people can feel good about what's coming. One thing we don't know, and this is the big question, is who is going to be his Chancellor. So is he going to go for a safe pair of hands like Shabana Mahmood, Wes Streeting, or is he going to go quite radical with Shabana Mahmood, who's currently Home Secretary, who talks, does, and kind of achieves lots of things? Or is he going to go quite safe and calm and try not to upset the markets? The UK markets are very, very unstable, especially since 2022 and the Liz Truss budget. But the cost of living, he also wants to renationalise a lot of things. A couple of days ago, the British Parliament, House of Commons, renationalised British Steel, the steelworks industry, and they want to nationalise Thames Water as well, which is in heavy debt. So one of the things Starmer wants to do is renationalise, which will bring down the bills and bring down the cost of living for people day to day. And we've got the Iran war, we've got the Ukraine crisis. If those get resolved soon, that will bring the cost of food down, the cost of fuel down. Obviously, the Strait of Hormuz we have lots of issues there with fuel and tankers and being able to transport things in and out of that region. So if that gets resolved, the cost of living will naturally come down in England and hopefully across the world.
We've heard an interesting thing from Burnham today. At one point, he said that the Labour Party will not out-reform the Reform Party. What could he have been referring to there?
So he's referring to Nigel Farage there. So Nigel Farage, the key Brexit campaigner and the leader of Reform, who stood down a week ago as MP for Clacton after some interesting donations to him and his party. So what Starmer did was very much talk about how are we going to beat Reform in the polls, and the polls are currently 350 polls have had Reform as number one kind of party. If there was a general election tomorrow, the polls suggest Reform would win. So Starmer was very much trying to hate Reform and trying to say Reform is far right and racist and, you know, not good for the country. What Burnham wants to do is bring it back to the Labour Party. And he said in his speech today that Labour would now be boldly, confidently us, rather than adopting other parties' politics. So he wants to bring the Labour Party into its own image once again. And he very much said from the 80s where, the 90s where Labour leader Neil Kinnock was there, Kinnock did a lot of change and made Labour what it is today, got rid of the far left factions, and Burnham wants to model that. And he actually, Kinnock was in the audience today and he actually thanked Kinnock for his work and helping him get into politics. So Burnham doesn't want to have a repeat of what Starmer did, which actually didn't help the Labour Party. It just almost made Reform more appealing to a lot of voters. I think what Starmer was trying to do was out-reform Reform and adopt some of their policies and go, well, they're racist, but they have some good policies, so we're going to adopt them and make them ours. And Shabana Mahmood has been doing that on immigration. But I think Burnham wants to bring that back and say, actually, no, the Labour Party is Labour, and we are here to exist for the working class, for the, you know, the people in poverty, for those communities that have been, quote unquote, left behind. So we wait to see. We wait to see if Burnham actually sticks to that promise, or whether the nature of British politics, which is very, very fractious at the moment, whether that pulls him into different parties' politics.
What we did not hear much about today was foreign policy. However, Burnham addressed voters recently, speaking on the war in Gaza. He said the party got it wrong at the beginning of the conflict, and he pledged a tougher stance on Israel. How important has that issue become within British society? Why did he feel the need to address that?
The Israel-Gaza conflict has been seismic in the UK. So since it started, every Saturday for a couple of years, we saw marches on the streets of London every Saturday, and huge crowds, pro-Palestinian crowds. You had Israeli participants as well. There was a lot of fracas. There was a lot of kind of disagreement and police having to get involved. So there was a lot of kind of, it split the country into two. You adopt either a pro-Palestinian position or you adopt a pro-Israeli position. And that has caused a lot of issues, both in society. You've had a lot of campus protests as well, so people camping out into, students camping out into university buildings and taking them over. You've had marches, as I say. But when it comes to politics, the official UK government policy is for a two-state solution. So Palestine to exist and Israel to exist. A lot of the pro-Palestinians don't agree with that. A lot of the pro-Israelis say, oh, is that going to work? How does that work? But in terms of politics, what has really happened was in the 2024 general election, there was a lot of pro-Gaza candidates who stood against Labour MPs, including the former Health Secretary and potential Labour leader Wes Streeting. He was about 800 votes ahead of the pro-Gaza independent in his seat in London. At 2024, we had 6 Gaza independent MPs. So they don't have a party. They're not a Conservative, they're not a Labour, they're not a Green, they're not Reform, they're independent pro-Gaza. And that scared the Labour Party, excuse me, that scared the Green Party, that scared a lot of the left, because suddenly there is this rise of popularity for pro-Palestinian parliamentarians. So we wait to see. Obviously, the Gaza war is still happening and going on. So we wait to see if a resolution comes of that. We wait to see what that does to the politics.
It will be very interesting to see what Burnham means when he says tougher stance. Hugo, thank you so much for joining me in the studio and breaking this down. Okay, coming up, we take a closer look at Azerbaijan's relations with Europe, following a report by a German TV channel on the importance and substance of Baku's cooperation with European nations. Don't go away.
As America sleeps, Europe is waking, and the East has begun its day. A News is right here at the center, bringing you the latest stories as they break. I'm Nadia Jani, here with you each weekday morning to share latest world news and the stories shaping our region. Across all platforms and wherever you get your news, we explore the context behind the big headlines. Live from Baku, I bring you a diverse mix of regional and international news, sport and politics for you, an audience that wants a bit more. So join me Monday to Friday for the latest headlines, expert analysis and live updates from around the world. Around the globe and live from Baku, this is Daybreak here on A News.
Welcome back, you're watching Primetime. A television report in Germany says Azerbaijan is becoming increasingly important for Europe beyond energy supplies. It highlights growing cooperation in trade, transport, and regional connectivity.
Azerbaijan is strengthening its position as a strategic partner for Germany and Europe, according to a report broadcast by Berlin-based television channel TV Berlin. The programme highlights growing cooperation in trade, transport, digital infrastructure and regional connectivity. It also notes that European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen's recent visit to Baku focused on expanding cooperation in those areas. Political ties have also strengthened in recent years. President Ilham Aliyev has visited Germany 5 times since 2023, while President Frank-Walter Steinmeier became the first German head of state to make an official visit to Azerbaijan last year. German experts featured in the programme say the Middle Corridor is becoming an increasingly important trade route linking Europe with Central Asia. They also point to Azerbaijan's role in the Southern Gas Corridor and its growing investment in renewable energy as supporting Europe's efforts to diversify energy supplies.
Above all, Azerbaijan's energy exports are important for Europe, and especially for Germany. Azerbaijan will therefore play an increasingly prominent role in its cooperation with Germany.
The programme concludes that cooperation now extends far beyond energy. It says progress towards peace with Armenia and the presence of more than 200 German companies in Azerbaijan are creating new opportunities for trade, investment and regional stability.
Well, joining us now to take a closer look at Azerbaijan's ties with Germany and Europe in general is Togrul Hasanzadeh, European Studies specialist, coming to us from Berlin. Togrul, welcome. Thank you for coming on Primetime. Let's start with the obvious area of cooperation, energy. How important are imports of Azerbaijani oil and gas for Berlin, and how has that energy relationship evolved in the past few years?
thank you for having me, and thank you for the question. Germany's interests in Azerbaijan significantly grown in recent years, especially after 2022, after full-scale war in Ukraine. But this interest from German side is not only because of energy, but also economical relations, especially after the first steps towards peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Germany, as a leading country within the European Union and, of course, third world economy, has interest in the region to develop peace and make an input in South Caucasian region, which is also part of the middle corridor, which is very important for the European imports and exports to the Asia. Through Azerbaijan, Germany wants also reach not only our region but also Central Asian region, which also is in recent years important, especially Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. So energy is one of the first fields of the cooperation between Azerbaijan and Armenia. As you know, Azerbaijan exports into the 16 European countries its gas. Among them are Germany and Austria. But as we can see and observe that both parties, Azerbaijan and Germany itself, are interested to deepen these relations and go more, and make more cooperation not only in the energy fields but also in other fields of cooperation.
And of course, there are many other areas of cooperation. We'll get to that in a bit. But you've mentioned there that Baku's export footprint when it comes to energy is expanding all over the European continent. Do you expect that trend to continue?
Of course, the importance of the region and importance of Azerbaijan is growing in especially last 5 years. So Germany's goal is to be a leading country among the European countries in a field of cooperation with Azerbaijan and, of course, with Georgia and Armenia. But we know that for example, Italy is one of the also important partners for Azerbaijan. So they will be interesting to observe what can Germany provide to Azerbaijan. If we take into account that Germany's policy in the energy transition, the green energy, hydrogen energy, so there is a huge potential for the cooperation between Azerbaijan and Germany itself.
On those, Germany, sorry to interrupt, on those green energy projects, is that perhaps an area where European companies might provide some expertise?
Sure, but Germany's goal is also cheap green energy, and Azerbaijan had invested in last years into the green energy. Solar energy, wind energy, and in comparison to European countries, European states, Azerbaijan can produce more solar energy and wind energy. Azerbaijan is a windy and sunny country, so the potential is also pretty big, and Germany wants to have green energy. It's a part of the German policy of Energiewende, energy transition, and that's why Azerbaijan here is one of the most interesting for Germany's partner.
And you've touched upon transport a bit earlier, obviously with the middle corridor becoming increasingly the route of choice to ship from China to Europe and vice versa. How interested are German companies and European companies in general in becoming part of that logistics chain?
Well, since 2022, they really not have a lot of choices anymore. So Azerbaijan and South Caucasia, especially Georgia and Azerbaijan, became somehow, in a positive way, I would say, monopolist here. So also from another perspective, European Union and Germany will invest in this region, which from their opinion, and it's also a common thing, that it will make an input for the peace keeping in South Caucasian region. You know, there are this trip project, yeah, and that's why the German and European Union, I would say, they want also to have a part of their cake.
Now, interesting that you say that. We've had some recent updates on the TRIP project, now at a time when Baku is strengthening partnerships across the globe with the US, with China. How do you see individual European countries and the EU as a whole approaching Azerbaijan to, as you put it, have a piece of that cake?
Well, European Union itself as a system, it's a difficult system in a field of decision making. So it can take a time so that European Union develops common and general policy towards Azerbaijan and South Caucasia. In this way, such leading countries as Germany or, for example, Italy will by themselves make investments in different transport projects, railways, first of all, the roads that can connect Azerbaijan from the Caspian Sea to the Black Sea and then to the Europe. So investments and business interests. The big European, for example, German companies can invest and will invest, I'm pretty sure, in Azerbaijan.
Togrul, thank you kindly for joining us on Primetime and sharing your analysis.
Thank you for having me.
All right, after a short break, we'll check in with our correspondents around the globe. Don't go away.
On World Business, we meet the boardroom leaders making market-moving decisions. And find out how leaders are dealing with continuous technological disruption.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond. We are in Seoul's Republic of Korea, a country that for more than 70 years has lived in a shadow of unfinished war.
I was 18 years old when the Korean War broke out. My two brothers were dragged out to the front yard of the village public hall and forcibly subjected to a trial under the name of People's Trial.
The military demarcation line, created after the Korean War, became a massive wall, preventing separated families from meeting.
Less than a kilometer away lies North Korea.
지금 우리 무장력은 그 어떤 위기에도 대응할 철저한 준비가 되어 있으며 Подписанный сегодня договор предусматривает в том числе оказание взаимной помощи в случае агрессии против одного из участников.
Russian-Ukraine war now is connected with North Korean participation in Russian army.
The complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula is the only outcome that we will find acceptable.
If the U.S. persists in such hostile policy towards the DPRK, there will never be denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
Welcome back. You're watching Primetime. Iran says at least 7 people were killed and 16 more wounded in the latest wave of U.S. strikes on bridges and residential areas. Iran's mission to the UN said the attacks against civilians and non-military infrastructure constitute war crimes. A News' Turah Shiralilu reports from Tehran.
Local media sources in Iran reported that the death toll has risen to 7, resulting from U.S. attacks on residential areas and bridges in Bandar Abbas and Bandar Khamir in southern Iran late on Thursday. According to the state broadcaster IRIB and the semi-official Fars news agency, at least 16 non-military citizens were wounded, including 9 receiving medical treatment for serious injuries. Earlier on Thursday, the Ministry of Health said more than 300 people have been injured and 35 others killed in the U.S. attacks since 24th of June. The southern provinces of Hormuzgan, Sistan and Baluchistan, and Khuzestan, bordering the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman, have suffered the heaviest impact from the latest attacks. Meanwhile, Iran's UN ambassador, Amir Said Iravani, has sent a letter to the Security Council and the UN Secretary General condemning the attacks on Iranian civilian infrastructure, calling them war crimes. In the letter, he said that targeting civilians is a serious violation of international humanitarian law, and the US should bear full responsibility. He also wrote that the continuation of illegal armed attacks poses a serious threat to international peace and security, freedom of navigation, regional stability, and the security of the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, linking the Persian Gulf to the Sea of Oman. In Tehran, the Foreign Ministry said in a statement that the U.S. betrayed diplomatic efforts by breaching the Memorandum of Understanding signed in June, adding that the U.S. should be held responsible for breaching the agreement. The statement also called on neighboring countries in the southern Persian Gulf states to prevent the U.S. attacks from their soil and airspace, defending Iran's right to hit U.S. bases and interests in the region as an act of self-defense. Turah Shiralilu from Tehran for A News.
A pioneering artificial intelligence conference has opened in Shanghai, bringing together industry leaders, top executives, and venture capitalists, along with Chinese and international officials. The event is meant to provide a stage for fostering AI collaboration, governance, and innovation. Abu Had Jafarova reports from Beijing.
The 2026 World AI Conference and high-level meeting on global AI governance has officially opened in Shanghai. It brings together government officials, technology leaders, and researchers from around the world. In his opening address, Chinese President Xi Jinping stressed that artificial intelligence should remain safe, reliable, and under human control.
AI should be a trusted tool for humanity. We should take seriously the various types of inherent and secondary risks that AI may trigger. We should put in place laws and regulations, technological monitoring, early warning and emergency response systems in order to strengthen the line of security, prevent abuses and malicious use, and ensure that AI is always under human control.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres also called for a more inclusive approach to AI governance, saying decisions on the future of artificial intelligence should involve all countries.
Technology that will shape the future of humanity must be shaped by all humanity. It cannot be governed by a handful of countries or a handful of companies. every nation needs a seat at the table. And the table is now being built through the global dialogue on AI governance, as called in by the Compact.
The conference has brought together participants from more than 70 countries and regions. Over 1,100 companies are showcasing more than 3,000 AI products and technologies, including more than 300 global premieres. Ahead of the conference, representatives of 29 countries signed an agreement to establish the World AI Cooperation Organization. Chinese officials say the new intergovernmental body is aimed at strengthening international cooperation and promoting global AI governance. The conference will continue through July 20 with discussions focusing on AI innovation, safety and international standards. Abukhaya Jafarova, A News, Beijing, China.
The Turkish foreign minister has called for a resumption of peace talks on his trip to Kyiv. Hakan Fidan has told President Volodymyr Zelensky that Ankara is willing to host the next round of negotiations between Kyiv and Moscow. Adam Morrow has more in Istanbul.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan has met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kiev, as Ankara continues its diplomatic efforts to revive stalled talks aimed at ending the Russia-Ukraine war. The closed-door meeting took place Thursday evening during Fidan's two-day visit to Ukraine. According to the Ukrainian president, the meeting tackled possible ways of reviving the stalled peace process between Kiev and Moscow.
We are very thankful for your support of our territorial integrity, sovereignty, and we're thankful for your steps in negotiations. In the process, we had several meetings in Turkey, and we really want to have peace for our country.
Zelensky also conferred Ukraine's second-class Order of Merit on Fidan, citing the latter's outstanding personal contribution to strengthening bilateral ties between the two countries. The meeting came only hours after Fidan held talks with his Ukrainian counterpart, Andriy Sybiha, with whom he held a joint press conference in the Ukrainian capital. Speaking to reporters, Fidan urged a resumption of direct negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, reiterating Turkey's readiness to provide a venue for future talks. Turkey has previously hosted several rounds of talks between Russian and Ukrainian delegations, while maintaining working relations with both Moscow and Kiev throughout the war. But soon after Fidan made the remarks, the Kremlin appeared to downplay prospects for an immediate return to the negotiating table. While the Kremlin spokesman thanked Turkey for its ongoing diplomatic efforts, he also said there was currently no prospect of a short-term resumption of peace talks. The contrasting statements highlight the challenges facing Ankara as it seeks to revive diplomacy between the warring parties. Nevertheless, Fidan's visit to Kiev underscores Turkey's continuing effort to position itself as a mediator, with Ankara arguing that direct dialogue remains the only way of finding a negotiated end to the ongoing conflict. This is Adam Morrow for A News in Istanbul, Turkey.
Kazakhstan and China have signed more than 70 commercial agreements worth over $15 billion, including a major new port on the Caspian Sea. Fariza Kalimurzina has the details in Almaty.
Kazakhstan is set to significantly expand its transport capacity on the Caspian Sea, backed by a major new deal with China. The Guoyu Materials Group has signed an agreement with Kazakhstan to develop a new multifunctional port complex in Kuruk. The announcement came during President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev's walking visit to Shanghai, where he met with the company's chairman, Yu Boyan. Investment in the first phase is estimated at $300 million, while total investment across all stages could reach $1.1 billion. Construction is scheduled to begin in 2026, with the facility expected to become operational in 2 years. And according to the Kazakh President's office, the company plans to bring the project's throughput capacity to as much as 15 million tons. Kazakhstan is seeking to strengthen its position as a major Eurasian transport hub. Kursk is strategically located on the eastern coast of the Caspian Sea along a major transport route linking China and Central Asia with the Caucasus and Europe. The existing port currently handles around 2 million tons of cargo a year. It processes a wide range of goods, including oil products, fertilizers, metals, chemicals and vehicles. Kursk also plays a role in Kazakhstan's agricultural exports, with its grain terminal handling shipments towards Iranian ports. The new development is expected to boost Kazakhstan's transit potential and strengthen the Middle Corridor, a key trade route between Asia and Europe. The project is also expected to create new jobs, develop local expertise, and increase the use of Kazakh goods and services. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A-News.
Russia is one step closer to tightening its migration rules after lawmakers backed a bill expanding the list of offenses that could lead to the deportation of foreign nationals. Sevilla Rajapova has more.
Russia may be tightening the rules on foreign nationals. A State Duma committee is proposing to raise the number of offenses that lead to mandatory deportation from 22 to 45. Additional offenses would include discrimination based on race, nationality, religion or gender, taking narcotics in public and blocking transport. It also includes displays of extremism, such as showing banned symbols, inciting hate and distributing extremist materials. The proposal is part of Russia's broader effort to tighten migration controls. Earlier this week, authorities announced plans to require long-term foreign migrants to buy mobile phones that allow officials to track their location. If this latest proposal becomes law, it could affect millions of Central Asian workers. According to Russian border data, Uzbek citizens made more than 3.1 million entries into Russia last year, followed by 1.4 million from Tajikistan and nearly 1 million from Kyrgyzstan. The bill will now move to the State Duma for further consideration. It is Sevilla Rajapova reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A-News.
All right, after a short break, we'll take a look at other top stories of the day. We'll be right back.
More than 20,000 partisan fighters have been hidden. We found only 3,000.
My grandmother had 3 brothers. In the graveyard, the body of just one of them.
Their struggle was very unequal and against a state that had defeated such a force as Nazi Germany.
A lot of resistant fighters in the beginning of Soviet occupation actually would end up here, if not killed somewhere in the woods.
She was arrested at her home. Her 7-year-old daughter ran to her and screamed, "Mom, please take me with you." This record having the names of the individuals who were placed in the list of deportations.
I was born in Kengia, in a labor camp. My mother was a partisan liaison.
The first years were extremely difficult, of course. Poverty, hunger. The temperature sometimes dropped to minus 50 degrees.
The train stations, like the one behind me, once said goodbyes to thousands of people carried from across the Baltic states toward Siberia.
Inside Politics delves deeply into the heart of global issues shaping our world today. Join me for your go-to source of political analysis from across the region and beyond.
Welcome back to Primetime. Ukraine says it's struck 2 sanctioned Russian oil tankers in the Black Sea. Kyiv says it's targeting Moscow's shadow fleet of vessels being used to evade international sanctions. The operation comes as fighting continues across Ukraine. A Russian guided bomb strike on the city of Zaporizhia has killed at least 3 civilians in the latest strikes. Missile attacks on Odessa have left 2 people dead and 8 others injured. Azerbaijan's foreign ministry says the body of the Azerbaijani captain of the merchant vessel struck off the coast of Odessa has now been recovered. That Turkish cargo ship was hit on Tuesday. Still with Ukraine, where President Volodymyr Zelensky is facing a growing backlash over plans to replace his defense minister. Protesters gathered for a second day across the country, angry over Zelensky's surprise cabinet reshuffle. Demonstrators claim it's a backward step in the ongoing conflict with Russia.
Ukrainians rallied in central Kiev on Friday to protest against President Volodymyr Zelensky's dismissal of Defense Minister Mikhailo Fedorov. He was a popular official, widely credited with modernizing Ukraine's military. But on Thursday, Zelensky removed him from office as the country remains at war. The move has exposed reported tensions between Fedorov and Commander-in-Chief Alexander Syrsky over military reforms.
To most of the public, it appears that they decided to keep a more compliant general like Syrsky, while replacing a more challenging yet effective minister like Fedorov, since he was too strong a reformer, who, in the president's eyes, might somehow have been able to influence, for example, become a president in the next election.
Yes, the government does need some kind of reset right now. But it should retain those people who are effective in their positions and who deliver results for the country, both for the military and the civilian population.
Dozens of protesters urged the government to explain the decision and listen to public concerns. Many demonstrators said they hope public pressure will persuade the government to reconsider.
What upsets me the most is that there is a complete lack of communication between the government and the people of Ukraine. Why, specifically, was the defense minister replaced?
I truly believe and hope that the government will, after all, listen to the people, that it will heed the people's demands, because this is what the people want, for the sake of our soldiers' lives and for the sake of the civilians who live under air attacks every day.
Zelensky has defended the reshuffle as part of a broader effort to renew his government. Critics, however, argue that removing Fedorov could undermine reforms aimed at improving military efficiency and tackling corruption.
Germany and France are eyeing a major strategic shift in European defense. Following talks with French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz confirmed that Berlin is reviewing a French proposal for shared nuclear deterrence, a move that could potentially overhaul the continent's military doctrine.
Wir werden das erste Mal jetzt konventionell.
And we will now be taking part in such an exercise for the first time using conventional means in order to identify where we can achieve our common goals, namely improved deterrence in Europe. And this will remain complementary to what we, Germany and France, are doing together in terms of nuclear sharing, including within the NATO alliance. In other words, we are enhancing our defence capabilities by seriously examining an offer made to us by the French government with regard to nuclear deterrence. We are proceeding step by step here, and it may well be that this will result in a new doctrine, but it is far too early to say that today.
Azerbaijan's Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov held wide-ranging talks in Moscow on Friday, focusing on bilateral cooperation and regional developments.
Azerbaijan and Russia have outlined an ambitious agenda for closer cooperation with trade, transport and regional security-topping discussions during high-level talks in Moscow. Foreign Ministers Ceyhun Bayramov and Sergei Lavrov held one-on-one talks before meeting with their delegations and addressing a joint news conference.
In the recent past, we encountered difficulties in our bilateral relations. This was already noted during our discussions today. We are pleased to note that our two states have managed to turn the page on this difficult period and fully normalize the entire spectrum of Russian-Azerbaijani relations.
Этап в наших отношениях и полностью нормализовать весь спектр российско-азербайджанских отношений.
Lavrov said all issues related to the December 2024 Azov passenger plane crash had been resolved, referring to a joint statement issued by the two foreign ministries earlier this year. Economic cooperation featured prominently. Bilateral trade reached $4.9 billion in 2025, up 2.5%, while the ministers also reviewed progress on the international north-south transport corridor and transport links with Iran. On the South Caucasus, Bayramov said peace already exists de facto between Azerbaijan and Armenia and outlined the remaining steps towards a final peace agreement. Lavrov said Russia remains committed to supporting the normalization process between Baku and Yerevan.
Russia consistently supports the efforts of Azerbaijan and Armenia to achieve a full and comprehensive normalization of relations based on the set of high-level trilateral agreements reached in 2020 and 2022. As before, Russia is ready to assist both Baku and Yerevan in unblocking transport and economic links and resolving humanitarian issues.
The ministers also discussed the 3+3 regional platform, with Lavrov saying its next meeting could take place in either Baku or Yerevan. They concluded by addressing the falling level of the Caspian Sea, calling for coordinated action by the littoral states before exchanging views on the Middle East and the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
Well, that's our show. Thank you so much for watching and join us again on Monday. From all of us here at A News, have a nice evening and a very nice weekend.